is it about the power of nature that stirs us so, that draws us deep into its secret whispers, knowing that the answers to life's biggest questions lie right here, in this vastness? I love being in this space, on my way to meet someone who knows it intimately. Judy Bekker, a teacher and facilitator, who uses the ancient ritual of vision quest to take people deep within themselves, as they spend days and nights out here alone, listening to what nature can teach them.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you.
Hi. In this beautiful place.
Groot Winterhoek Mountains.
The great winter corner.
Yeah.
And so these are they, and down that way is the Cederberg. So we're not quite in the Cederberg. I always call us the sort of lower ranges. I like the way the eye is drawn here. It's such a treat being here because you drop down to quiet, you drop down to still, and you stare a lot. I love being able to just sit and look. And that's what we do a lot of here.
What does nature do for people, being in this space? What does it do for us?
I think it brings out the inner stillness and allows you to listen differently to yourself and to what's around you. So every bird call you hear, it's not smothered by other noises. And I just find it a soulful place to be. It throws you back into yourself.
You're a lucky person to be able to come back here so often.
Aren't I?
Just take it all in. For millennia, indigenous peoples have gone solo into wilderness on vision quest as a path of transformation and rite of passage. For 20 years, Judy has been facilitating this in South Africa.
4 days and nights, alone in the wilderness, with yourself and nature and silence. We'll be working with key stages that are part of the old traditional rite of passage, which is what a vision quest is. The central core of the vision quest is the solo time, alone, in nature. When I come down from that, what is it that I commit to taking on again? What I will step into? What's the next threshold I'll cross, but what will I take with me? And what they're leaving behind in themselves that no longer serve them. People who are coming on a vision quest, who choose to come on a vision quest, have decided that things have to change. Maybe it's about their profession, their careers, maybe it's about relationship, maybe it's an attitude to health. So they all have different reasons.
How many stone circles have you built, Judy?
Oh my word. I think we're okay.
I feel very tribal. La, 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 la.
It's the threshold stick.
What does it mean?
The saying goes that when you go off alone to live in the mountain, you leave from a place such as this, a simple circle, and when the stick is pulled out, it leaves an indentation. And the saying goes, you disappear down the hole. You disappear down the hole and you pop up on the other side, and you're invisible. So we always say to people, we're not going to talk to you, we don't see you, you're gone until you come back on Friday. You live with yourself so intensely and intimately that becomes the major work, really, is how I live with myself without distraction, with no escape. So yes, I mean, it's quite a leap of faith, it's quite a test.
When did you start to engage with nature and the transformative power of nature? The life and death cycle, perhaps?
I think I'd have to say I noticed as a girl, and as when I moved into womanhood, I noticed what would happen in my interior being when I was in nature. A sense of connectedness that would always hit for me. It felt like an umbilical cord had been re-enlivened. I feel a very deep connection to earth.
So what have you been doing all these years in your working life?
Well, I worked as a journalist for 10 years all over South Africa, an interesting time, 1970 to about 1982, actually, and loved it and left it. And I then, through a very wonderful set of circumstances, found myself called to facilitate a parent communication course, parent-child communication course. And I so loved it. So I became an instructor, a facilitator, and from there I moved from that kind of work into corporate facilitation. I began to travel and work very hard, and at that time I went from earning very little money with 2 small children, and I was a single parent and divorced at that stage, and I went from earning very little money to suddenly earning well.
Judy met Valerie Morris while facilitating. Later, they would start Vision Quest together.
Judy's an inveterate learner, but I think she's an amazing teacher because she's such a good learner. And she loves to learn, and she loves to find what's her edge, what's her new learning edge.
The corporate work became very intriguing to me. It really caught my imagination and became a passion. I loved going to different companies and seeing what was needed and proposing how they might improve their productivity or performance and working on the relationship within teams. So it was a lot of output, in a way. It always is in facilitation and consulting, in learning and development. You're it, in a way. You're the product. If you're having a bad day and you're not unwell, you have to dig deep into yourself, because I can't stand up and say I'm having a rough day. Sorry for you, chaps. It's not going to be my best. You've got to get out there and get yourself together.
So I think when she got to that point where she was really tired, she'd worked incredibly hard facilitating the corporate arena and just carrying the business as far as the facilitator goes. And she just felt there was something more that she needed to experience.
So 40 was quite a turning point, and as I moved towards 40, 38, 39, I began to notice, well, a sense of burnout, quite a sense of burnout, and being dry. I felt like I was living a bit of a drought in myself. And I found I was having to dig deeper and deeper to find the well, that when I stood up in front of people and said, here we go, we're going to look at communication skills and launch into a day or 3 days together, I was tired. I was tired.
For me, it was amazing to watch her come to terms with doing something that was absolutely terrifying, and knowing that in the terror, that's the thing that she had to do.
Corporate facilitator Judy Bekker had reached 40, and after years of non-stop working, she'd burnt out.
It didn't take me too long to recognize that I actually had to do something, because, and I wasn't quite sure what. I mean, I don't think I was going to leap into another career all of a sudden, or there was a lot that was going on for me, and then all the time you're getting up on Monday morning and off you go again.
So you took a leap?
I did.
What did you do?
And, well, it seemed like quite an ordinary thing to begin with, but I suppose almost immediately it wasn't, because Valerie and I made a decision to go on a learning journey.
We planned this epic 10 weeks overseas to both relax but also find out what was new.
We both asked consultants and friends in the States, we were going to America, if they had time and money and wished to be learning something new, being on an edge for themselves, where would they go, what would they do?
Someone had sent her an invitation during this period where we were gathering information of what should we be doing over these 10 weeks. And this piece of paper came and she read this. This is a Vision Quest and Mountain Lion and fasting solar, and she said, you must be mad, and put it at the bottom of a pile.
So I had been out in wilderness a lot by that time, but never ever lived alone overnight, never mind 4 days and nights. And I thought, nope, this is not for me.
And every day somehow it got to the top of the pile. And by the third time it got to the top of the pile, and she kept putting it below the pile.
And then I knew, that's where you have to go.
And that was wonderful to watch. And we thought about it. No one knew anything about it. And so that leap was just, I can do this, and this is what I need to do.
So I phoned. There's a number in California, and they said, gosh, there's one place left in this process, this one in October 1991, and I didn't know you were coming from so far away. So I went.
She's always been terrified of lions. So when the one big animal that was mentioned on this piece of paper was a mountain lion, the thought of going out there on your own, unprotected, added the complete fear to that.
Whew. I felt like I was almost being brave beyond myself. I felt really quite afraid.
What was the fear? What's it bringing up for you?
The fear was, I think, that I'd die, that I wouldn't come back. Something would happen to me. I was really frightened and being very brave for myself. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. But I thought I was going to be eaten alive. I thought tarantulas would be mating next to my sleeping bag. I thought all sorts of things were going to happen. It was a foreign land. It wasn't earth that was familiar to me. So we parted ways, and I landed up in this hick little town. And so it began. So it began. Sunday morning early, everyone wakes up, packs all their last belongings in that little knapsack, and they take enough to be warm, dry, and to be reasonably comfortable. But Vision Quest is about giving up. And on that Sunday, day 4, they have to find their home in the mountain. Or we say, let their home find them.
That spot, I was surprised by how few nice spots there were around there.
It's a bit rough out there.
It's rough.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's why I was thrilled to find my little place.
I don't think you should move.
I feel like I found my
I think you should absolutely stay there.
Yeah.
And now we're just waiting for the folks from the east.
Well, we've got Sarah coming in. We just haven't seen her.
Have you seen her?
Yeah, Sarah's on the way in, but not.
Oh, great. Carrying her water bottles or not? I hope she's found a place. This is really quite a day for us. You send people off into very unfamiliar terrain, people from Sweden, from England, from Joburg, and they've never been in places like this, not in the wilderness before, and you send them off marching east to go and find a home. It's quite something. So they're encouraged to go into the mountains and find a cave or an overhang and make home, but they don't know where to go. So it's a great act. It's a great act of faith, actually.
She came back saying, I feel I've been deeply rearranged, but in the right way. She came back in an absolute knowing that this is the work that I need to be doing. The leap was actually going and doing it.
I suppose it's about dropping into a place in yourself where you don't spend a lot of time and where you're kind of held captive in a beautiful way by an unbelievable silence. Externally and internally.
Find out where her home is. We'll probably make it on the
I keep on thinking what happens to people on day 2 or day 3 out there on their own.
It's a variable, and I think the beauty of it is that people begin to acclimatize quite quickly. They find there's not much to be afraid of. It's actually not a hostile place. And they begin to learn how to live with the elements. So we spent the last 3 days with these 9 women really honing intention. So, as we say always, you don't just amble into doing something like this. It's quite a radical act. So we spent the last 3 days having a lot of fun, also shedding some tears, and doing a lot of exploration around what actually am I going, what's chasing me out of my front door into this? People don't always know what's ahead, so they may arrive saying, I know things have got to change, I'm not sure what I'm stepping into.
When Judy set off on her vision quest years earlier, she also didn't know specifically what she was going for. What would her vision be? What did she want at the deepest part of herself?
Can't see anyone. Going to a mountain or a desert to cry for a vision means that the vision really comes into form and being when you go home, and you have to live into it. And I began to sense that part of my living into my vision of deeper connection with nature, deeper connection with the cycles of birth and life and death, that would entail me possibly doing this work in South Africa. I didn't have a clue how. The thought was positively overwhelming, but I came out of that desert mountain feeling, I knew in my bones, have to venture into doing this work in South Africa.
Judy Bekker's vision quest continues as an ongoing personal journey. She now faces life's challenges head-on as a way of deepening her experience and finding a perfect place in life and in nature. So let's talk about the big leap of faith in your life, where you yourself, with all your own fears, started to look at death and its implication in your life. What happened?
Well, I realized that nobody close to me had died. That I was fortunate enough to have living all those important and close in my life. So I began to contemplate that and noticed how fear still lived in me big time. It wasn't so much about our mortality as much as about fear of grief, of loss, that I began to feel, I'm so not ready to lose my mother.
Judy has an extraordinary close connection with her mother, and there was a massive fear from her, real fear, that she would not be able to handle her mother's dying, that she would be overwhelmed by grief.
But I wasn't ready, and I began to explore this matter of grief and loss and realized that I had a big will in there that quite frightened me, and I thought, gosh, I'm ill-prepared. What happens when the time comes? It's very hard for me to describe what was so scary about the grief. The shadow of it was being alone, stepping up to matriarchy, because I would be the next matriarch in our family. It was, I wouldn't have a woman who called me daughter. I suppose I just loved her a lot.
And if you feel into it now, what is that?
Well, it's the parting, it's the ultimate parting with one that you love. And I think it's also about being one who remains. You know, it's a big, we don't go anywhere in that sense, but we jump. We who remain jump. And it's how to live in that leap, I suppose. You know, when something dramatic happens or is taken, one has to jump.
You intuited that you needed to work your panic around grief, your fear around grief. And now you were living the results of that with the death of family members and of your mother.
Yeah.
What do you think of your leap?
Well, one thing I know is I'm not sure it's ever fully completed. It's like my leap around grief and loss and death and dying. It's ongoing, but there's no fear about it. There's a certain joy, there's a certain liberation in it too. It's strange. But I'm okay with that, and I feel that I was given this journey for a very particular reason. It was a lot about coming to terms with my own mortality, which I still work with. I so glibly said, I've never been afraid of my dying. Well, I think all of this hooks into our own dying and preparing to die a good death, and preparing to face whatever life brings, and whoever goes, and that it'll be okay. I live. It's very much about the journey of the hero or the heroine, the severance aspect of leaving and moving off onto a roadway that's filled with ogres and demons in our minds, in the case of the Vision Quest. We are very busy trying to live a good life, but we do not contemplate endeavouring to prepare to die a good death. Practicing our dying enlivens our living, and I love that. So where can I go in my imagination, where can I go in my deepest heart around letting go and dying to my old bits of human nature? So a very important piece in this solo journey is just that. And it's not about people wandering off to think about jumping off a cliff, or it's not the real-time dying. It's the little deaths that we're dying every day that we don't often give any attention to.
And it's in those deaths that a rebirth or a re-emergence can come.
That's it. That I then, when something sloughs away, I see what's there. I see the new skin.